Penguin Random House Audio presents Same as It Ever Was, a novel by Claire Lombardo, read for you by Emily Rankin. For Molly. Part 1. Lost in the Supermarket. Chapter 1. It happens in the way that most important things end up having happened for her. Accidentally, and because she does something she is not supposed to do. And it happens in the fashion of many happenstantial occurrences, the result of completely plausible decision-making, a little diversion from the norm that will, in hindsight, seem almost too coincidental. A slight veer and suddenly everything's free-falling, the universe gleefully seizing that seldom-chosen other option. Running, arms outstretched, like a deranged person trying to clear the aisles in a grocery store, which is, as a matter of fact, where she is, the gourmet place 2 towns over, picking up some last-minute items for a dinner party for her husband, who is turning 60 today. This one is a small act of misbehavior by any standards, an innocuous other option as far as they go. Choosing a grocery store that is not her usual grocery store because her usual grocery store is out of crab meat. Afterward, she will remember having the thought, leaving the first grocery empty-handed, that such a benign change to her routine could lead to something disastrous, something that's not supposed to happen. This is how Mark, scientific, marvelously anxious, has always looked at the world, as a series of choices made or not, and the intricate mathematical repercussions thereof. Julia's own brain didn't start working this way until she'd known him for a substantial period of time. Prior to that, she'd always been content with the notion that making one decision closed the door on another, that there was no grand order to the universe, that nothing really mattered that much one way or another. This glaring difference in character is perhaps what accounts for the fact that Mark dutifully pursued a graduate degree in engineering, while Julia neglected to collect her English and rhetoric diploma from Kansas State. Now, though, they've been together for nearly 3 decades, and so she did consider, just a fleeting thought, that so cavalierly altering routine could result in some kind of dark fallout. But at the time she'd been envisioning something cinematically terrible, something she wouldn't have encountered had she just foregone the crab instead of driving 15 minutes west, a cruel run-in with a freight train, or a landmine. Not with an 80-year-old woman assessing a tower of kumquats. Julia doesn't recognize her at first. She doesn't consciously notice her, in fact, nor does she stop. She's headed industriously past the organic produce to seafood, contemplating a drive-by to dry goods to see if they have anything interesting in stock. Sometimes the stores in the farther out suburbs have a more robust inventory. She's considering taking a spin around the whole store, checking out what else they have that hasn't been subject to the frenzied consumption of the usual suspects at her usual grocery, when it hits her. The woman's face registers in her brain belatedly, clad in the convincing disguise, that invisible blanket, of age. Hers has not been a life lived under the threat of too many ghosts. There's only a small handful of people whom she has truly hoped to never encounter again, and Helen Russo happens to be one of them. So why does she find herself taking a step closer to the end cap of the dry goods aisle, getting out of the flow of traffic so she can turn to look back? It's been over 18 years, which is somewhat astonishing, both given the fact that they used to see each other at least once a week, and given the smallness of her world, a world in which something as small as altering one's grocery plans can be considered a major decision. She is unsure as well what moves her back to where she came from, but Helen's not in produce anymore, has progressed to the bulk section, where she is weighing out a bag of pine nuts. According to their accompanying sign, they are $16.75 for a half-pound, and she remembers becoming aware of such extravagances during the afternoons she spent at the Russo's house. The heaviness of the cutlery, the paintings that looked suspiciously like originals, the bottles of wine she'd look up when she got home and find to have cost $58. She is here procuring the ingredients for celebratory crab cakes, one of her husband's favorites. The thought of Mark sets off a momentary swirling of wooziness. She's carrying around an empty basket, and, feeling somewhat ridiculous, she tosses in a purple orb of cabbage. In some ways, Helen looks predictably much older than she remembers. In others, her optimistic ponytail, the glint of the big blue beads around her neck. She hasn't changed at all. Julia takes a few steps, then a few more. Normally, she is the queen of evasion, treats her trips to the grocery like sniper missions, seeing how many faces she can avoid having to interact with. This does not mesh with whatever gregarious phantom has overtaken her body now, impelling her close enough to see the pair of drugstore cheaters propped on top of the woman's head. Helen? When Helen turns to face her, there's a curious vacancy in her gaze. Her eyes trail slowly up and down. Julia thinks to consider how she looks. She runs a hand through her hair. She worries momentarily that she'll be mistaken for some kind of miscreant. She's wearing what Alma calls her clown pants and one of Mark's old button-downs. She likes to think the combination has miraculously resulted in something extemporaneously stylish, but it's likelier taken her in the opposite direction. It can be hard to tell in the suburbs whether an eccentrically clad woman carrying around a single organic cabbage is nomadic or expensively disheveled. She begins to consider how much she herself has changed since last they met, and the volume of those changes hits her forcefully and all at once. She is, upon reflection, more changed than not. She becomes nervily aware of her pulse pumping in her ears. It's entirely within the realm of possibility that Helen won't even recognize her. That old worry, so familiar to her, that you haven't meant to someone as much as they meant to you. But then Helen speaks. It couldn't be. The heartbeat sound recedes. Overwhelmed by the surrounding bustle, a woman arguing with the butcher, a man talking into an invisible earpiece, a child in a down vest singing shrilly about a baby shark. Helen's voice is remarkably unchanged. Julia is transported, not unpleasantly, to afternoons in the Russo's backyard. Helen, older then, still, than Julia is now, imparting her parental platitudes, her pithy one-liners, her candid confessions, all with the confidence and ease of a person who actually enjoyed her life, astonishing to Julia at the time, because she herself did not. I thought that was you, she says stupidly. Don't tell me I haven't aged a day, Helen says, or I'll have you assassinated. Nervous, she laughs. No, you look, because I have to say, you look quite a bit older, so I must look eons older. It's more surprising than insulting, and, to be fair, she is quite a bit older, but still she feels herself flush. I think eons is pushing it. Now Helen laughs. Well, you recognized me. That's saying something. You look terrific, she says, almost shyly. I remember you being a bad liar, Helen says. Even your grocery card isn't entirely convincing. They both look down to regard the cabbage. Just getting started, she breathes. How are you? Helen asks. Give me the rundown. The bullet points. Oh, She's not sure what to say. It occurs to her that the last time she saw Helen was before Alma was in the picture. But it seems a strange thing to announce to a near stranger. I gave birth 17 years ago. In fact, the plot points of her life over the last 2 decades are myriad. So much bloomed from that time, toxic and otherwise, tiny green shoots sprouting from ravaged land. A new job, another baby, a doubled-down commitment to her marriage, and then, after that, the way things relaxed into routine. The accrual of acquaintances, and the maturation of her children, and the adoption of a tiny black terrier mix named Suzanne, the embroidery of daily existence, fabric softener and presidential elections, the dogged forward march of time. the brightly colored billiard balls of her days, kinetic and
Sample complete. Ready to continue?